Hey, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Brittany Skyler, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, the owner of Lely Laser MediSpa speaks on how she provides state-of-the-art services to anyone who wants to rejuvenate and unleash their beauty. Then we speak with the co-director of Energy Opportunity Lab at Columbia University and the Chief Program and Impact Officer at Robin Hood to learn more about their report, The Prevalence and Persistence of Energy Insecurity in New York City. After that, we look back at an interview to learn more about Clubhouse Café. And finally, the CEO of Cases talks about their new location that is opening up in the Bronx as a one-stop shop to help support the people of the Bronx. So stay tuned, all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hey everyone, I'm Brittany Skyler filling in for McLean, and today is Tuesday, August 27th. You're now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. During her fight against breast cancer, one woman developed a special interest in skincare as she sought effective skincare treatments and hair removal services for cancer patients and survivors with delicate skin. Richina, a 10-year breast cancer survivor, takes great pride in utilizing her knowledge and experience to provide state-of-the-art services at Lely MediSpa to anyone who wants to rejuvenate and unleash their beauty. Richina joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today, Brittany.
Of course, I'm so excited to talk about this. I read a little bit about your bio, and I'm just so excited to kind of get into your journey. So to start off, tell us a little bit about the overall mission of Lely MediSpa.
Yes, so the overall mission for Lely MediSpa is to help people embrace their inner beauty as well as beauty from the inside out. We just don't focus on the outside, we also focus on the inside.
And so I know that Lely kind of stems from a personal journey, your own battle with breast cancer. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Definitely. So about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was aggressive, and so we treated it aggressive. I went through chemo, radiation, surgery, went to hell and back, and once I got back, I needed to understand that I wouldn't have a recurrence. And when I sat down with my oncologist to confirm that, you know, the things I can do to prevent a reoccurrence, I wasn't really assured that I was going to have prevention of a reoccurrence. So I had been a nurse over 10 years at that time, so I started, you know, looking into my nursing background, researching, and I embarked upon glutathione, which is the greatest antioxidant. We call it the mother of all antioxidants. It kills free radical cells, and cancer is caused by free radical cells. So I flew to California, I got trained in it, I started doing my treatments monthly, and it really gave me my reassurance to prevent reoccurrence, and 10 years later, I'm here, I'm healthy, and these are the services that I use to really help me build myself back up.
You know, I think that's interesting that you mentioned that there were some things that you can and cannot do, and a lot of times people don't know that. So can you share a little bit about what are some of those don'ts?
Yeah, so there's multiple don'ts. You know, when you are going through your journey, you want to make sure that you really start focusing on your health. You know, chemo kills the good cells as well as the bad cells, so it's a lot of things. Your skin is affected by it. Your skin starts to be deteriorating. You don't feel good. I lost every bit of hair on my head, which was my crown. So there are a lot of things. So you want to make sure that you do have an aspect of focus on your beauty, and that's really getting appropriate skincare so that your skin can be worked back up to health, because you want to make sure that you can build your skin back up to be healthy as it's being damaged by the chemo. So we focus on a lot of products that we use for people that are going through chemotherapy, and you know, not using products with parabens and other you know, things that can be toxic to the body, because we don't want to add any additional toxicity. And we focus on those products and we use them, and we really help people feel good, because when you're going through your journey, you don't look good, you don't feel good, and we really embrace that, especially going going through the personal journey, I know what it feels like to be vulnerable, and I know what it feels like to look for an answer. And those aren't things that your doctors focus on. They focus more on definitely treating the cancer. However, they don't focus on what it does to your self-esteem, what it does to your skin, what it does to you just in general and how you feel, which is a big part of helping you be successful in your journey.
You know, thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important because, as you mentioned, the doctors, they're going to focus on that one, I guess, so to speak, physical health target that they're trying to get rid of, right? But like you mentioned, self-esteem, it really takes a toll on your mental health. And when you're going through this journey, mental health is half the battle at this point as well. So I think it's really important to have services like yours. So with that, tell me a little bit about what are the services that L'Elite MediSpa offers?
Yes, so we offer all different types of facials, especially facials utilizing products that are safe for people that are going through treatment. We also offer glutathione, which is that richest antioxidant, because once you do go through that journey and you achieve your goals with killing the cancer, you want to make sure that you have a reoccurrence, that you won't have, reassurance, excuse me, that you won't have a reoccurrence. So that's huge because you don't want to always live in fear of if it's going to come back. So that kind of is more my security blanket. So we offer glutathione infusions. We also offer IV infusions that people during treatment can go through because you deplete all of your vitamins and your minerals, so you feel very, very run down, no energy. You have a lot of nausea. So the clients that do come and we provide those IV services to them with vitamins, it really helps them get through their treatments. It really helps them feel good when they're not getting treatments and gives them back their energy as well as just feeling good and helps them deal with the side effects of the chemotherapy. So we have services for people when they're going through treatment as well as after. And then another thing that the treatment does is it imbalances your hormones. And you know, sometimes cancer is caused by certain hormones and people are scared once they finish treatment that they cannot get hormones, but we do natural hormone therapy for survivors and I do it. It's amazing. It helps with energy, it helps with healthy aging. So after you do go through your battle, it really helps you bounce back and kind of feel like yourself again.
That's such a great, you know, concept. It's such a long list of services that you offer, again, like you said, to help you bounce back afterwards because, you know, like we keep talking, you're only, when you're in the hospital, you're getting treatment, it's for that one sole thing, but there is the follow through and all of that that will take you throughout the rest of your journey. And so just to clarify, these services are for only cancer patients, correct?
No, these services are for cancer patients as well as anybody battling any type of autoimmune disease, people that want to focus on health and wellness. We are very proactive instead of reactive. So we offer services for disease prevention, health promotion, wellness, healthy aging. These are things that are inevitable that do happen with aging, but we can focus on aging healthy because it doesn't have to suck to get old.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think it's so important that you're offering, you know, services that are clean, you know, as somebody that I do, you know, dabble a little bit in wellness and cosmetics and all of that, it is tough sometimes that you're putting things into your body and you're putting things on your skin and sometimes you're wondering like, how is this going to affect me in the long run? So I think being able to enlist in these services and then also to know that what you're putting in is safe and it's clean, I think really does make you feel safe, and it's like a security blanket almost.
Definitely. It definitely decreases anxiety. You know, we focus and we get educated on a lot of alternative medicines and a lot of alternative treatments because they do utilize more natural ingredients. We focus a lot on compound pharmacies because they use the purest ingredients, so they help decrease side effects and they are more on a natural line. So that's what we really work with a lot, and all my staff are educated in them.
And, you know, speaking of education, you were a nurse, you're board certified in aesthetics and wellness, and you were an educator yourself and, you know, educator and leader yourself. So tell me, how has that influenced the way you approach these treatments at the MediSpa?
So it's influenced it greatly. It's ingrained in me. It's a part of it. Education is key. You know, people come in and they don't know a lot about these services or they're vulnerable. So they're anxious. And when you start educating clients, you can see their anxiety levels start to just decrease as you're talking to them. So it really helps a lot. And people want to be educated. You know, Google is our friend and everybody's on it. So, you know, people come in and they're educated and they ask for treatments and they kind of quiz you too to make sure that you know what you're talking about. So, you know, the field that we're in is very innovative and education is a necessity. So, you know, we're continually innovative and we just continue education for all my staff because that's something that we have to stay abreast to because our clients come in educated and we have to make sure that we're well educated to deliver the services that we do.
Absolutely. And so when a client walks in for the very first time, what can they expect?
So they can expect to come into a comfortable environment, a safe environment. You know, we have dealt with a lot of vulnerable clients. I was vulnerable myself, so I know what it's like to sit on the other side of that table and receive services opposed to giving them. So they get that personal experience, and it's always memorable because we do educate the client, and we are compassionate when we deliver their services, and we take our time with them to make sure their needs are met.
And can you share some maybe success stories or feedback from clients who have benefited from the MediSpa, maybe a first-time occurrence or?
Yes, definitely. So a lot of times we had a first-time client. She came in, she was very vulnerable. She was nervous. Her doctors told her don't do certain things, and so she was very nervous. When we sat down, we went through the consultation. We just talk about what her needs are, what has she heard about it, and we really connect with the clients to understand, how do they feel. And then we start educating the client. Once we start educating the client, she's actually one of my star clients. She comes and she gets a lot of services now, but she needed to feel comfortable because when you come in, you're vulnerable, you don't understand this, and you have some doctors that tell you that these services that we offer, being that they're alternative, that they're not the best for them. And everybody abides by their doctors, but I think we're starting to see now that there are other things out there that can be helpful for us. So this client, she feels so much better. She was actually battling cancer, and she had ulcers in her mouth, and they were very, very painful to her, and what her doctor was giving her wasn't working. And we did an ozone therapy treatment for her, and then I called to follow up to give her a solution, a swish and swallow solution to help with the sores, and she was like, those sores are gone. They were gone the next day. So it just helped her get through her journey and really help her do it more comfortable, and it was something that she really couldn't get from her traditional doctor, so we were able to help her, and she told me it changed her life just because it was so much easier. She can eat better. She can, she's not in pain, so it was truly helpful for her.
That's so amazing. And now let's talk a little bit about where some of these services are offered. Let's talk about this Harlem location. What can we expect?
Yeah, so the Harlem location, it's located in Harlem. We're on Madison Avenue, right 1 block from Central Park, and it's going to be amazing. It's state of the art. We have a VIP area. We have, upstairs we're offering bioidentical hormone therapy, which is natural hormone replacement. We're also doing all of our facials, and we're going to have our grand opening in September, so stay tuned. And it's going to be amazing. We're glad that we can bring these services to the clients in the Bronx and Upper East Side, in Harlem, because these services aren't really offered to the underserved communities. They're only offered really downtown Manhattan, Long Island. So, it's not really offered there. So we've come into a place and we're glad that we're able to offer those services to the population.
It's so, again, accessibility is so, so important with overall cancer treatment alone, but now having this additional, help and follow through and all that. It's amazing that you're bringing this now here to the community.
Thank you.
Of course. And so let's talk about the effort that you make to highlight the beauty that comes from inside out. Tell me a little bit about the journey with that and the significance of that as we wrap up.
Yes, definitely. So a lot of people, they focus on the outside. You go, you get facials, you get Botox, you go get fillers. You focus a lot on the outside, but the inside is not healthy. And so we really focus on beauty from the inside out. We draw blood work when our clients come to see us to see what's going on inside so that we can provide insight. We can provide some services for that. So we truly embrace beauty from the inside, because if you only treat the outside and your inside's not healthy, it's going to deteriorate that much quicker.
What a perfect place to leave it. What a great message. Richina, I want to thank you so much again. Congratulations on the new location, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brittany.
Of course. So to learn more about the services that are offered and to book your appointment, please go to their website at lelitemedispa.com. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open after this.
Hey Creative Family, my name is Timothy Coleman and I'm the Director of Education here at BronxNet. And I'm standing in BronxNet's Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx because I want to let you know about an amazing program that we're bringing back that highlights the creativity of community members just like you. Emerging Media Makers is a show that introduces you to BronxNet's certified producers. They've taken a step in their creative journey by enrolling in BronxNet's media training classes. On this show, you'll get to see the many ways that our certified producers have created a space that's all their own. Emerging Media Makers, your passion lives here.
Welcome back. Energy insecurity is a common phenomenon among New Yorkers in poverty. Roughly 2/3 or 62% of New Yorkers who live below the poverty line fell behind on their utility payments, and almost 43% had utilities shut off. We speak now with Dr. Diana Hernandez, the co-director of Energy Opportunity Lab at Columbia University, and Matt Klein, the Chief Program and Impact Officer at Robin Hood, to talk about their latest Poverty Tracker report, the prevalence and persistence of energy insecurity in New York City. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So to start off, for our viewers who may not be aware, let's talk about the definition of energy insecure. What does it mean to be energy insecure?
It means that you have an inability to meet your household energy needs. And that means that there are kind of economic factors that make it challenging to pay a utility bill. Sometimes it also has to do with housing and whether or not your housing is efficient and able to produce comfort. And then it's also about coping. So the kinds of things that people do when they're facing financial or physical challenges in their housing.
And you did mention some economic factors. So tell me a little bit about who would be the most affected by energy insecurity.
Well, one of the things to understand is that energy insecurity affects so many New Yorkers. So in any given year, 700,000 New Yorkers have a utility shut off. And when we look over a 5-year period, that number gets to 1.5 million. So one of the benefits of this report is that it's part of the Poverty Tracker, which is a representative sample survey that goes to the same New Yorkers over multiple years. So we can follow what happens to individual families over time. And so then we see that energy insecurity is often not just a one-time thing. It can be a ongoing thing. But beyond sort of the broad, widespread effect of energy insecurity, we see that it's concentrated, as you might expect, among folks who are economically struggling. So as you mentioned at the outset, folks who are living in poverty are seeing rates of shut-off at almost 50% in any given year over a 5-year period. And we also see that it's not just shut-offs, it's also falling behind on payments.
Yeah, and on Open, we've discussed food insecurity, housing insecurity, but for some reason, energy insecurity is not necessarily at the top of the list for policymakers. And that's something that your team found throughout this report. So why do you suppose that is?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think, things like housing and food can happen very much in public. Like you see lines at food pantries or you see homelessness. And so they're more public facing, whereas families who are struggling with economic insecurity can happen in private. You can, your heat can get shut off, you don't use air conditioning, you don't use the internet. But what we have to recognize is that these kinds of challenges are as critical as food and housing. Right now, there's health impacts on folks who are struggling with economic insecurity and energy insecurity. And the internet is obviously tied to people's participation in the full economy, whether you're a student doing homework, whether you're an adult looking for a job or communicating with coworkers. These are necessities at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, what are some ways the community can probably enlist in their policymakers right now and kind of get their attention to kind of help push this initiative forward?
Yeah, so one way is just to call it out, right? We know that naming something is part of the pathway to solutions, and really kind of recognizing that energy insecurity is not only an issue, but it's also an issue that affects so many New Yorkers is one critical step. There are others too, like calling the utility company. The utility company is very aware that people are having these kinds of affordability issues, but kind of that direct line. And then connecting with policymakers. So there is a whole process called the rate case. And in a rate case, which happens every 1 to 3 years for utilities everywhere around the U.S., where there is a public-private partnership, for instance, between a utility service provider and a certain territory, the gas or electricity provider goes to their state public utility or public service commission. And they justify why rates need to be increased. And they say, we need so-and-so X amount of dollars to offset the infrastructural investments that we're making, the staff that are necessary to deliver these services to your home. The supply side, there's no profit to be made, but on the delivery side, there is. So when you look at your utility bill, there are the two sides. There's the supply side, which the utility says we'll pass it down at cost, but where there's profit to be made and where there's a guarantee of profit is on the rate of return for utility deliveries, the delivery of utility services. And that's what ends up driving up the cost. Now, the cost of delivering services is increasing in part because utilities now have to harden the infrastructure. Climate change is really challenging so much of what we know on the built environment. And because of that, it makes it that much more expensive and it translates into higher bills. I was looking at my bill the other day, and just to deliver services to my unit costs about $100, right? So that has increased substantially. In the last rate increase, for instance, that was negotiated in 2023, you'll see an increase of $65 per month for electric and gas utility customers by 2025.
And so, Matt, more than 1.5 million New Yorkers have lived in a household where their utilities have been shut off at least once. Tell us a little bit about how this is continuing to affect the lives of average New Yorkers.
Right. Well, you just think about what a utility means to an average New Yorker. It means you can live, you can cool yourselves as our summers are getting hotter. In climate change, our weather is getting more intense, so winters can be colder. It allows you to see in your home. But as we were talking about, critically accessing the internet. So one of the things that we have to understand about energy insecurity is it sits within the context of overall affordability. So as Diana mentioned, there's often trade-offs for folks between paying an energy bill or a utility bill or going hungry or having enough to eat or paying rent. And so the focus for policymakers has to be on overall affordability in New York. That's housing, that's increasing wages, that's making sure that energy is considered in the necessities that people have to live with.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about one particular initiative, the Energy Opportunity Lab. Tell us a little bit about it.
So I am the co-director of the Energy Opportunity Lab, which sits in the Center on Global Energy Policy at the School of International and Public Affairs. I'm also a tenured faculty member of the School of Public Health, and I run an energy equity housing and health program there. But the Energy Opportunity Lab is really this kind of exciting opportunity to translate research into policy and practice with an emphasis on energy affordability and energy access. Domestically, that looks like basically raising awareness about the issue of energy insecurity. We know that nationwide, 1 in 3 households are energy insecure. We also know that this has huge implications for health. Because it has, there are mental health concerns, respiratory health, cardiovascular health, but also, to Matt's point earlier, the idea that people that are living with electronic medical devices are also more likely to be energy insecure. So at the Energy Opportunity Lab, we're trying to find solutions and really driving the case for understanding what energy affordability means for our populations now, and as we transition to a green, clean energy economy, what that means in terms of who gets to participate in that clean energy economy, but also what it means for reducing the risks and harms that now exist because of energy insecurity.
And as we're approaching now we're more toward the tail end of summer, right? But Matt, tell me a little bit about how some of these challenges are exacerbated during the warmer months.
Well, just as Diana mentions, a lot of the health impacts are more severe in the summer months. And we're also just seeing summers become hotter and longer. So as the effects of climate change are felt, energy insecurity is increasingly important. But I also want to say it's not an intractable problem. We saw, in the years prior to the pandemic, insecurity too high, but also declining steadily. And we saw also during the pandemic that policy efforts really helped. There were moratorium on shutting off utilities. So policy and an intentional focus on affordability can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we start to wrap up, can you both tell us a little bit about what can be done to help mitigate the issue of energy insecurity?
Well, again, I just put it in the overall context of affordability. So we saw, for example, dramatic reductions in the rates of poverty in New York City, both prior to the pandemic and as a result of pandemic-related policies like the child tax credit. We need to see the child tax credit continue. We need to see wages continue to go up, particularly for hourly workers. All of that helps reduce energy insecurity. But then we also have to take the specific policy steps to make subsidies more broadly available and make it easier for families to know how and where to access those supports.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I think about it in terms of like discounts. So you can get a discount on your utility bill. There is a program that was actually negotiated in the last rate case, which is called the Energy Affordability Program. If you are on SNAP, if you are on WIC, if you are on other means-tested programs, you can be automatically enrolled. If you're on Medicaid, you have to apply separately, but you can definitely enroll that way. There's also HEAP, which is the Home Energy Assistance Program, and that runs seasonally from October through May or until the funds run out. And basically, you have support through the winter time. And then you also have disconnection protection programs. So if you are on life-sustaining devices, if you're over 62, if you're otherwise disabled, you can enroll with the utility provider, in this case, Con Edison or National Grid, so that your utilities can be maintained. Thinking about if you're a tenant or if you're an owner, a homeowner investing in energy efficiency, there's a lot of rebates and other incentives now to make that possible. If you're a tenant, really kind of working with your landlord to try and think about ways to make your home more efficient. And then the last piece of it is, as Matt said, the EITC, so the Earned Income Tax Credit, and overall kind of increasing wages and financial resources for households.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for coming today and sharing this information with us.
Thank you.
To learn more about the report, please visit the website robinhood.com. Stay tuned. We have more open for you right after this.
.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city, and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Welcome back. We like to take this time to look back at an interview with Andrew So, the Executive Director of SBU, and Heidi Trujillo, a fellow for the SBU Workforce Development, who shared with us the details of the Clubhouse Café, where teens get to experience real-life job skills.
Now, I want to learn a little bit more about South Bronx United. So can you tell us a little bit more about that mission and the overall goal of the organization?
Yeah, sure. We're a nonprofit youth development organization that brings in young people through their passion for soccer. It combines soccer with academic enrichment, college prep, mentoring, immigration legal services, social work supports for youth and their families. And we work with about 1,600 young people every year, all the way from ages, really age 2 all the way up through 24.
That's amazing. And I was really, I was shocked to kind of hear about soccer and how it kind of branched out into doing so many other things, one of those being the Clubhouse Café. Can you just explain, what inspired the creation of this program?
Of the cafe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a few different things. I think it traces back on the programmatic side to the workforce development program, which was how do we support young people, helping them prepare for careers and prepare for the next steps after high school or after college. We have a lot of young people going on to college, but trying to figure out what's next, or figuring out college sometimes isn't for them, or they need a job or part-time job or something to support them through school. So that was one aspect of it. And then we have some young people that college isn't for them, and they're trying to figure out how to make that next jump in their life. So starting from the workforce development program, kind of figuring out how we can support young people towards that. And we wanted to be able to provide something in-house. So we already had what was called the Coaching Corps, which provided young people opportunity to coach, learn to be coaches and mentors on the soccer field. But we wanted to have another aspect to it as well, because getting involved in coaching sports isn't for everyone. And we had the opportunity to, right where our offices are on River Ave by Yankee Stadium, the opportunity to have a little space, and decided it would be a great opportunity to open a cafe right there, and provided opportunity to provide employment to young people.
That's amazing, and I want to learn a little bit more about the cafe, but I want to hear from you, what actually drew you to the program? Was it the fact that it was a cafe, or maybe you were looking for experience? Can you just explain, what sparked that interest in you?
I think it was both, experience-wise, and also I enjoy coffee, so that was kind of my in as well. So yeah, I think the job experience, and I'm also studying business right now, so I think getting, to train there, I get a lot of different types of, skills that I will need in the future. So yeah.
That's amazing. And can you expand on, the reasoning behind actually creating a cafe? Because I think that's very unique in regard to workforce development. That's the first time I've heard of, an organization saying let's kind of focus on something that's super specific, like a cafe.
Sure.
And it's really interesting. So, can you talk about maybe why the organization wanted to go that route?
Yeah, and I spoke about the programmatic side to it, and the other side was the community aspect of it. So we had recently moved into our new office in our clubhouse about a year and a half ago. And there was this, we're on the second floor of the space there, and on the ground floor there was about a 600 square foot space. We'd been storing our stuff there while we waited for them to finish up the offices, and thought about what could we do with this space to support the programs. So the workforce development program is what it became, but also provide more visibility to the organization and support the neighborhood and community in general. And I'd known that neighborhood, known it for many years. A lot of people, I'm sure, know it very well, right by Yankee Stadium. And surprisingly, there's been nothing in the neighborhood, no coffee shop. There's nowhere for folks to go, sit down, do work while getting a really good coffee. There's diners and bars and. But there's been nothing like a neighborhood coffee shop, so we thought it'd be a really good fit, and we'd heard from the neighbors and residents and people that work there that they were looking for something like that. So we thought it'd be a really good fit in that aspect, supporting the neighborhood as well as providing a spot for us to get young people like Haiti into in behind the bar and give them the chance to work.
Now, can you talk about the partnership with local coffee roaster? I hope I'm saying this Devoción.
Yeah, Devoción. Yeah.
Okay, can you talk about that partnership?
Yeah. So another reason, and I have no background in coffee. I have no background in running I run a nonprofit, but a small business or cafe, a restaurant of any kind.
Right?
Yeah, it's very different. But we had a board member that owns three cafes in the city and brought a lot of experience. And he brought in as well the connection with Devoción. And they do the coffee at his cafe. So we made the connection through there, got connected to the CEO, Stephen Sutton, and he was really excited about the prospect of supporting the Clubhouse Café. They're a B Corp, so they have it as part of their business model to support, have a mission-based support for the community. And they came in, they donated all the equipment for the cafe, so we didn't have to pay for that. They provide a great cost on the coffee beans themselves, and then they provide training for the young people in the Cafe Fellowship to train as baristas. So they go down to the roastery in Williamsburg, and then they do some training on our location as well.
That's amazing. And can you talk about, what that experience was like in the training?
I think it was really fun, like getting to actually, I think there's a lot of things that go into making coffee. I think we just think about, what type of milk we're gonna put and all that. But, I learned a lot of things like the smell of it, like the way you taste it, the way you have to grind it, the size. So yeah.
That's amazing. And I feel like it's almost kind of like an art to like there's people that's like very passionate. Do you feel like maybe your passion has grown, after like going through this program?
I think definitely it has. Yeah. My interest in coffee definitely grew. Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, I want to talk about the long-term effects of, the Clubhouse Cafe. How will this prepare young people for careers in hospitality?
Sure. I think most immediately, like, despite the lack of coffee shops and cafes in the Bronx and the South Bronx in particular, you go throughout New York City, and in Manhattan, there seems like there's one every other block, whether it's the Starbucks or a local shop or whatever. So there's a lot of employment opportunities once you get the skills to work. So you can translate to working in other cafes. They're also getting their food service certificate that can translate to working in all different establishments. So there's that side that it can directly translate to working in any number of businesses. But we want to make sure that the young people that are going through the fellowship are getting transferable skills well beyond just getting their next job in a restaurant. So they're doing workshops every week in the classroom. They're working on building their resume, working on interviewing skills. They're working on how to communicate with their supervisors and colleagues. A range of other job skills that they can apply to the hospitality industry, but also any other career that they look for afterwards.
Now, I also want to highlight another organization that was a part of the program, that's Harney and Sons. How will their inclusion further support the mission of Clubhouse Cafe?
Yeah, Haiti talked a lot about coffee, but we have teas as well, and there's a lot of tea drinkers out there, and they make a great chai. But they donated all the teas to launch the cafe and providing great support moving forward. So it's another establishment. If people are familiar with them, they have their own store down in downtown area, and they've been really supportive of the cafe and again helping us make sure that the most of what someone purchases in the store goes right back to the organization. So if you come in and get a tea, you come and get a coffee, these partnerships allow it so that most of your purchase will go back to support South Bronx United programs and the Workforce Development Program instead of paying for the goods that we have to bring in.
That's amazing. And I really like that it's fully thought out in that sense, because it's kind of like circulating within the community. And that's always an amazing, just step in the right direction. So I love to hear that. Now, what are some of the qualities a participant should have, if they want to have a really fruitful and successful experience? And I would like to hear from both of you on that question.
Yeah. Do you want to go first? What qualities? Haiti has all the right qualities, so you can kind of share.
You said the qualities.
Yeah, like what are some of the qualities somebody who wants to join should have?
Oh, I think someone that's willing to learn, someone that's very on top of themselves, someone who has time management, someone that likes to communicate, or even if they don't, like is willing to try. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she nailed it. Coming in with a passion and willingness to learn is the most important. But yeah, the organization is key, and that's what we work on young people with. But support, making it to all the workshops, all the sessions. Once you get put on a shift, then you know when to be there, and you know how to communicate if you're sick or you're going to be late. So all those are things that I think as you get farther in your careers, we take for granted, but for a lot of young people is skills that they're still working on.
Now, I'm excited to learn, what are the next steps for many of the participants after they complete the fellowship?
Yeah, well, Haiti could share what she's doing now, but we have students, we have folks that are full-time students and those that are looking to go into careers. So one of our goals is to help place them in a job if they want to continue. Some are staying in the cafe, some are going elsewhere. And think about how we can support them with whatever next step that is, whether it's a job, whether it's education, or whether that might be another training program or something if they want to go into a different type of career sector.
That's amazing. And do you have any advice for maybe, because you mentioned that a lot of them are students as well, so what advice would you give to some college students or possibly even high school students who may be interested in joining this program?
I think a lot of people should. Wait, sorry, can you repeat it?
Yeah, so what advice would you give to somebody who may be interested in joining the fellowship?
Yeah, I think the advice I would give is that you should go all in. You should not. You should like be on top of it. Like just try it out. You won't regret it. So yeah, that's the advice I would give. Yeah.
And if I could highlight, Haiti's been doing it as she's a full-time student.
Yeah.
Can you share about that?
I'm also a Lehman student here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love to hear that.
So I'm a sophomore here, and I'm currently studying business. So I think all those skills that I'm learning at the cafe would go into college and after.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to hear about this. This is the first time that I'm hearing, and it's something that's like really cool, like a cafe. I think most of these like work development, fellowships are usually like in an office or something a little bit more traditional. So I think it's exciting to see that we're kind of like branching out and doing things that I feel like a lot of young people would be interested in. So yeah, I just want to thank you both so much for joining us and kind of sharing, and you for sharing your story and sharing some advice with young people who may be interested in it. So thank you both so much.
Yeah, thank
you
you so much for having us.
If you or someone you know may be interested in learning more about this amazing opportunity for Bronx youth, please go to their website at www.clubhousecafebx.com.
Thank you, Andrew and Heidi, for taking the time to speak with us. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Open after this. Welcome back. The Cases Center for New Yorkers involved in the criminal justice system officially opened its new office in the South Bronx, which is expected to serve 1,500 people annually. Cases services for mental health treatment, pretrial support, youth engagement, court liaison services, and more used to be scattered around the borough. But this new office is designed to be a one-stop shop. We are joined by Jonathan McLean, the CEO of Cases. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So to start off, let's talk about Cases, the overall mission and the inspiration behind it.
So our mission is to help at-risk people get the services and supports they need so that they don't end up in the criminal legal system. And for those who have been touched by that system, our mission is to ensure that they no longer go back in it, stay out of it, and get the services that they need so that they can become and maintain themselves as productive members of our society.
And so later on in the interview, we're going to kind of break down all the services and everything offered. But in a nutshell, how would you say that your team works to bring this mission to fruition?
Well, we provide a myriad of services to support people who are in need. And, you know, I always tell people we predominantly serve black and brown marginalized people in New York City. We believe we bring the work to people with humanity, dignity, and the canned concern of people who have an intimate understanding of what this system does to people.
Speaking of what the system does to people, let's talk about the impact that the criminal justice system has on communities of color and people living with mental illness.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's horrible. I mean, I think we are in an age where black and brown people continue to be disproportionately impacted by the criminal legal system. I think in New York City, it's unconscionable that a third of the black men in this city by the age of 38 have been touched by the criminal legal system, either jail, prison, or arrest. I think it's unconscionable that half the population of Rikers Island are people living with mental illnesses. So if you're poor, if you're black, if you're Latino, and you live in this city and you come from a marginalized community, you're at risk.
Absolutely. And previously, you've stepped into roles including, work in clinical and youth programs. So tell me a little bit about how that has prepared you for the role that you play now at Cases.
I think the biggest lesson from working in those roles is the realization that no one's life plays out in a vacuum. Unfortunately, in this case, all roads tend to lead to the path. And the children in child welfare and foster care ultimately become the adults in the criminal legal system, the homeless system. And the through line is poverty, race, and class. And that is a tragedy, to live in a city so well resourced and to have so many poor marginalized people at such risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about this new location. It's supposed to be a, one-stop shop for all of the services that we had mentioned earlier. So tell me a little bit about this decision to open one up here in the South Bronx.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we say at Cases is that service provision shouldn't be a hardship on the people receiving services. And unfortunately, that isn't always the case. We serve people throughout the city. And many of the people that we serve, many of the people that receive the services that we provide live here in the Bronx. And I think more often than not, people don't realize how difficult it is for people logistically to move around the city. If you're living on the fringes and you don't have money, paying an extra fare is difficult. If you have to catch a bus or a train, if you are trying to raise your family, work, and you've got a provider on one side of the city and another on the other side of the city, it's challenging. So we're so excited to bring a location to the Bronx that allows the people that we serve in this community to be able to receive many of their services in the same space.
I think that's so important. And like you mentioned, it shouldn't be hard to find all of these services because in the end, it disrupts everything. And at some point when it gets so hard, you figure, why try anyways?
Absolutely.
So with that, when somebody comes in for the first time to enlist in services from Cases, what can they expect?
Like I said, I think they can expect humanity. One of the things that we value tremendously is the lived experience of many of the people that work in our organization. So we hire peers, we hire people who are credible messengers. All of those things create an environment where you not only are going to get someone who's going to provide you with a service, but you're going to work with someone who intimately understands you and where you're coming from. They may not know what you are dealing with in your life and what your struggle is, but they've walked the same kind of roads and they can empathize and support people throughout that struggle if you're coming to cases and getting services.
Absolutely. And one of the main, I guess, missions are to help serve people with, mental health issues and mental illnesses. And
criminal legal involvement.
yes. And so in New York City, but more specifically in the Bronx, we're seeing a lot of criminalization of mental illness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, again, it's horrible. I mean, I think jails and prisons should not be the de facto treatment facility for people living with mental illness. And if, again, you look at Rikers Island, more than half the population are people living with mental illnesses.
Right.
I think 1 in 4 have a serious mental illness. So it shows us that, we found ourselves looking at jails and prisons as the catch-all or the de facto treatment option for people living with mental illness. And it really illustrates what we're struggling with in this society, not prioritizing the kind of services and support that get people the help that they need so that they don't end up in places like prisons and jails.
Right, right. And, let's also talk about the changes that cases have made to help implement regarding the use of cash bail in pretrial detention.
Yeah, so we're big proponents of the holistic view of public safety. You cannot have public safety if you are not investing in people. And we've worked very hard to reduce the prison population, the jail population in the city. We run a program in Manhattan called Supervised Release, which has come out of bail reform. And there's a lot of misconceptions about bail reform.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we really do, and the fact actually is that most people who have been arrested, they go to court without incident. They fight their cases without incident, maintain their jobs, stay connected to their families, live in the communities, and are not rearrested. And what we do in Manhattan Supervised Release is we support people around that. We make sure that we identify people's needs who are arrested, get them the services that they need, give them the reminders, make sure that they get to court in time, and for the most part, get people to where they need to be as they are fighting their cases. No longer, we don't want to live in a city anymore where being poor is a prerequisite for going to Rikers Island.
Absolutely. It's, unfortunately, when you fall on economic hardships, it just makes things that much harder, and we had spoken about that, whether it's trying to get to the services that you need or paying, bail. So I think it's really important in what cases is doing. And so with that, can we talk a little bit about, we spoke a little bit about early in the interview with those who struggle with mental health illness. So let's talk about in what ways these cases support individuals with serious mental illness to achieve wellness in the community.
No, that's a great question. So we have a continuum of behavioral health services, mental health services for people who are living in a community. Just want to highlight 2 programs. We have an extensive mobile treatment network of programs out in the community. So we have 17 mobile treatment teams that are ostensibly programs that take the walls out of a mental health clinic and bring the services to people in vivo. So if you're living in a shelter and you can't make it to the people, traditionally many black and brown marginalized people don't do well in traditional outpatient treatment settings.
Right.
So we bring these services to them. We work with some of the most difficult to reach people, some of the most seriously mental ill people in the city, and we bring the psychiatrist, the doctor, the social worker to them. If people are struggling with housing, we make the connections, and we stay connected to them no matter where they live and what they do. Another thing that we have is a really unique program. It's called the Nathaniel Act program, and it is the only assertive community treatment team in the city that is an alternative to incarceration program. Usually if you want to get an ACT team, you have to go through SPOA, but for Nathaniel Act, you can actually get those services coming through court. So we're catching people who are being diverted to court, to jail, primarily because they have a mental health issue, and trying to get them the services as opposed to having jails and prisons be the de facto treatment option.
I was actually going to ask next about these alternatives. Before we do, can you tell me a little bit about maybe what has the feedback and outcomes been from these programs?
The outcomes have been great. I mean, I think it's a well-established fact that if you don't invest in people, you're going to repeat the cycles in terms of people going to jails and prisons. I'm a Brooklyn kid, and I came up doing mass incarceration. And that clearly doesn't work. So you've got to take the time and the energy to invest in people, which is what we need to do to invest in communities. Invest in people, then you're investing in communities. So the outcomes have been promising, but I think there's an underinvestment in these services we have way more need than we have mobile outreach teams, and we have way more need than we have services that support people pre and post adjudication.
So is there any way for the community to help get involved, maybe with cases in a volunteer position or just in a way to help provide that outreach?
Absolutely. We encourage people to go to our website. There are a number of ways to get involved. You can donate. We are developing an associate board where people who are interested in trustee work can get involved. I would encourage people to go to the website, reach out to me, contact cases, and we will find a way to get people in the community involved in services. And I would say, listen, if you see something you like and you're eligible, apply. We always want people to come work with us and work for us so we can continue to do this good work.
Absolutely. And now getting back to the alternatives, can you provide examples of community-based alternatives to jail and prison that cases have developed and promoted?
Absolutely. So one is the program that I mentioned earlier, Nathaniel Act. And then the other is a program called PACT, Planning Alternatives to Creating Community. It is a program that is primarily geared to young people who've been arrested, and it's designed to provide them with the kind of intensive services and supports that they need to keep them from moving further into the criminal legal system. So these are young people who are on the fringes, who are on the precipice of falling into the system, and the idea is to catch them and get them the right intervention at the right time so that they don't move into a life of prisons, jails, and homelessness, and all of the other things that come with this system.
Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, with that, I want to thank you so much for coming today and sharing all the services that Cases has to offer.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So to learn more about Cases and services, for more information about their new Bronx location, please visit the website at cases.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the Recablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Jaime on Wednesday and Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Brittany Skyler, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.